and gentlemen, it is absolutely unimaginable to think what the passengers of Yeshwanthpur Express and Coromandel Express went through yesterday at the same very time. We're talking about this. It's roughly around 7:30 in the evening. This was just 30 minutes into the accident that took place when three trains actually collided. For several of the passengers, this would be perhaps the biggest nightmare, and the difficulty that they had to basically go through. Little did they expect, and most of these trains were basically ferrying migrant laborers from West Bengal to the southern states. They usually go for their work from there. And also the train that was coming in from Bengaluru to Howrah had several people who were coming back home for their holidays. That's when this accident took place. One such passenger who went through a complete nightmare yesterday was Anubhav Das. Mr. Das, thank you very much for sparing time with us and sharing with us what you've actually gone through. I know it must have been the most difficult times that you've witnessed, and I would like to go thank you for taking the time out and for speaking to us. Why don't you tell us what really happened? What did you actually go through, and the difficulty that you actually faced at that point in time?
Thank you for having me. See, the thing is, I am actually a PhD research scholar in the field of geology. So my field area is situated in the Sundarbans jungle. I was there on my field trip for my research work, and I was returning back home, which is in Cuttack. So I was traveling from Kolkata to Cuttack via the Coromandel Express. And we started off at around 3:20 in the afternoon from Shalimar station, and up until 6:30 in the evening, everything was smoothly running and everything was fine. I remember very clearly that I had just gone up the upper berth to take some rest at around 6:15, and exactly at around 6:32 p.m., we heard a loud thud, and suddenly we also experienced a lot of jerks, and that resulted in the vehicle coming to a halt after about 40-45 seconds of jerking experience. And now when this occurred, our co-passengers and we understood that there has been some kind of an incident involving the train, and before anything wrong happens, we started to disembark from the train, taking our valuables. Right, as soon as we're disembarking, we see when we open the doors, we see that there are about three coaches that have been derailed on the opposite track, the track which is on the opposite side of our train, and there are about 100 to 200 people coming out of those coaches, heavily injured, head injury, cut marks on the arms, on the faces, even fractures. So they were asking and just asking for help. Very, in a very horrific situation, we saw them. And when at that point of time, we did not know if these coaches that had been derailed were part of the train that we were traveling in, which is the Coromandel, or were they part of some other train. After about a minute or so of interacting with them and helping them with water and other stuff like the bed sheets which they used as a makeshift bandage, after talking to them, we found out that no, the incident also involved another train, which is the train traveling from Bangalore to Howrah, which is called the Yeshwanthpur Howrah Superfast Express. Now, at this point of time, we thought that our train had actually stopped as a form of a precautionary emergency braking because the other train had derailed. Only three coaches had derailed of the Yeshwanthpur Express. At that point of time, the very first thing that we did was make sure that all of us and our coach, which was the last coach of Coromandel Express, there was only one coach, which is the guards coach behind us. We were all okay. So about 10 or 15 of us got down, tried to help those people, gave them water and everything. And I remember calling the emergency services and even informed the RPF. They assured that authorities would come in very swiftly. And by about 6:40, 6:45, about 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes later, more than 200 to 300 local people had gathered around there. They had come in to help. They're very, very, I mean, They did a very commendable job of giving us first aid, giving those people who were injured first aid, helping them evacuate the crashed coaches and everything. Now, when ambulance started trickling in, the first ambulance came at around 7 in the evening, 30 minutes after the incident occurred. We thought that ambulance would come towards us because at that point of time we were at that particular position where the Yeswantpur Express coaches had derailed. But the ambulance came and it went away from us towards the front of the Coromandel Express. We were puzzled. We did not know what exactly was happening. So about ten of us started moving towards the front of the Coromandel Express. After passing about 2 to 3 coaches after our coach, which was, and let me tell you, our coach was the only coach which did not have any damage whatsoever from the outside or inside, and nor had it derailed. So when we moved 2 to 3 coaches ahead of us, we saw derailment, and after about 4 or 5 coaches, we saw the proper brunt of the mishap that had occurred. The engine of the Coromandel Express had was probably sitting some 2 to 3 story high on top of toppled coaches of the freight train which it had hit, and a few coaches of the Coromandel Express as well. Now, this was a scene that would bring out that would even put the strongest of men weak in their knees, because as and when we moved towards the exact site, we saw bodies strewn around like anything. It was a situation right out of a war movie. There were headless bodies, heads decapitated, limbs have been cutting off, severed limbs, severed arms, people who had fractured their hip down or maybe the legs. I mean, it was really, really horrific. And it was also chaotic because there was a lot of noise of cries for help, mothers looking out for kids, kids who were looking out for their parents, not knowing where to look for them. Because this particular coaches that I'm talking about are the front coaches of the Coromandel, which involved two general coaches, and after that, 9 coaches of sleeper coaches. There were also the about 4 or 5 AC 3 tier coaches that had faced the brunt of this, and they were also damaged. And around 300 people had gathered by that time. Slowly, the authorities has come in. The proper force of the ambulances and authorities that they came at around 7:30, which is about 1 hour after the incident occurred. And by that time, the locals and the co-passengers who were fit and were not injured, they were helping these people. So to have seen such a damage of this level, to have understood the gravity of the situation within just 1 hour, let me tell you, it was really, really a situation of pandemonium. And at that point of time, I remember up till about 8:30, or almost about 2 hours after the incident, I remember, if I can vaguely tell you that roughly 200 to 250 dead bodies I had seen by that time. Bodies that were almost catapulted 40 to 50 meters away from the train tracks. All of us might know that there is a tendency of people standing on the doorways of general bogies, of sleeper coaches. When the mishap occurred, the impact was so strong that these bodies, these people, they were thrown off the train at such a forceful inertia, and they went and landed about 40-50 meters inside the fields. There were some fields nearby. And when the authorities came, first they told us that it is better you, people who are not injured, you go back to your coaches if you can, settle down in your coaches and try to evacuate the area, because at that time the authorities had taken up the responsibility on them to vacate it. But we still, because this area is situated in a not so remote area, and there was one road that was attached to the highway, which is about 1 kilometer away from the train tracks. That particular road, as soon as the authorities came, that was converted into a green corridor of sorts, where only the emergency services were allowed to come in. The fire trucks, the ambulances, and the cranes were only allowed to come, and it was getting a little crowded at this point. So we thought it was better for us to stay in our coaches for as long as we could, because at that time going to the highway would not have solved any purpose, because we did not know how to go back to our homes or to wherever people wanted to go. So in the meantime, I had also called up my father, who had made arrangements for a car to come and pick me up at that point. My home was about 3 hours from that area, 200 kilometers away from that area. Now, at this point of time, we understood that there is involvement of three trains: the Coromandel Express, which is traveling from Howrah to Chennai; the freight train, which was in the loop track beside the track of Coromandel Express; and also the Yeshwanthpur Express, which is traveling from Bangalore to Howrah. But there were also toppled coaches which were one on top of the other, and these needed very high and specific techniques to be evacuated. And that included the NDRF team using the gas cutters to cut down and take out people. Also, any sort of hurried approach in this matter probably would have resulted in even more damage, toppling down or falling off those coaches. So they were very slow in that process, which is actually the good thing to do. And we even saw a few coaches which were damaged like anything. They were smashed in the middle. One of the coaches of the Coromandel Express was smashed right in the middle, which probably hit the oncoming Yeshwanthpur Express. I understand from people, and I understand that both the trains were probably moving at around 115 to 120 kilometers per hour, and everything started with the derailment of the Coromandel Express. I understand there are some reports out there that are saying otherwise, but then whatever we have gathered, whatever I have gathered by talking to the people, because clearly I have not seen when the incident occurred. I was inside the coach, but I talked to a few people outside, talked to onlookers, talked to local people, even talked to a few rescue people who had come in from local areas. They said the Coromandel Express derailed first, went on to hit the goods train which was situated in the loop track beside it. Then either one of the coaches of the goods train or a coach of the Coromandel went and hit the Yeshwanthpur Express that was oncoming towards Howrah. So this is what the scenario looked like at that point, and it was very very horrific because I even saw a guy aged about 17, 18 years of age. He had a cut mark on his forehead here that was bleeding like anything, and he was carrying his father who had a severed left arm, and he was crying so loudly for help that we had to carry the father up till the ambulance and take this guy to another ambulance as well. We even came across a person who had a severed ankle and he could not walk, so we were carrying him. As soon as he reached a few pile of dead bodies near the ambulance, he saw the dead bodies and he fainted over there. So it was more of a shock that resulted in a lot of people fainting or leading to their deaths more than just any form of injury. And there are even bodies that were smashed onto the railway tracks, and we could only see blood and few flesh. Only the cloths were remnants of those bodies. Only from them we could understand that this was a body of a human being. So the death toll is around 280, 300 right now, and really sorry that I think this might go a little higher. And I really hope that the authorities and the hospital staff, they are given as much help as they can for tending to the injured. And my heart goes out to the bereaved family members, and my condolences to everybody. After all this situation, yesterday night it was an adrenaline rush. I could not really figure out that I had been involved in such a huge incident until I came home. Came home at around 3 a.m. Went to sleep. Early morning when I wake up and I see the visuals, the drone visuals of TV news channels, that is when it hit me that okay, I have had a very miraculous escape from this, and probably blessings of Lord Jagannath, and somebody probably is looking out for me up there, and I've now realized that how fragile life is, and this is almost like a rebirth for me.